Hi, I'm Kyle Pennypacker. Welcome back to Penny Prepper. Today's video is going to be covering the third rule for the rule of threes, which is that you can't go more than 3 days without water. This is something that's very important for any new prepper getting into it, because typically one of the last things that you focus on is storing and stockpiling water, but it is very important. So stay tuned. All right, I'm going to start off the video by giving you a very simple way to test your hydration level. Next time that you go to the restroom to urinate, take a look at the water, see what color it is. The darker in color your urine is, the less hydrated you are. If it's clear and looks like the water doesn't change any color, that's great. You're probably very hydrated. But you really need to start by taking a hard look at your hydration level. See what you're drinking. If you're drinking nothing but Dr. Pepper or Coca-Cola or sweet tea all day, chances are your hydration level is very low. Typically, you're supposed to have, I believe it is 8-ounce glasses of water a day, 8 to 10, and that is supposed to be proper amount of hydration, but you can survive off of less. All right, with that, you can survive off of, I believe it is 4 8-ounce cups of water a day, or approximately 1 liter. Now, again, that depends on your body type, your fitness level, and the overall health of your body. Also with that, it depends on the amount that you're exerting your body, the temperature, and what type of stresses your body is under. All right, so the first part that we're going to focus on as far as the water is going to be the storage. I want to start out by saying that light, temperature, and air are going to be your enemies as far as water storage, mainly because when you think about it, if you get water that's a little bit too warm, that's where bacteria can really start to breed and populate, as well as with oxygen that can introduce your water to the outside air, stuff like that. That's more of what we're focusing on, and as well as light. Light from the sun, the UV rays can actually be used to sanitize water, but if you leave it in the sunlight, it increases the temperature. That can cause issues. But again, it's something that once you get into it, you start to understand it. This is not the video that will go into a deep dive about water purification. This is more for the rule of threes and getting the basis for that. With that, there's tons of storage options for water. Let me see. I'm just going to run down my list here. We have bottles of water. You can buy gallons of water. There's aquatainers, stackable water bricks. There's the Igloo, Scepter, Ozark 5-gallon cans that you can buy. Those are pretty nice and they're great for carrying. Water cooler jugs. You can get them at Walmart. Those are pretty nifty, and you can actually buy a water cooler, plop them right on top, and keep recycling or going through that water. We also have stuff like the 30-gallon water bob that you can keep in case of an emergency. Keep it near your bathtub, throw it in there, fill it up with water at the beginning of an emergency, and keep utilizing that. Also, even something like trash bags. You have a bunch of trash bags and water still flowing through the pipes. Try to fill those up, make sure that they're not going to pop or anything. Keep filling as many as you possibly can. 55-gallon barrels, the plastic type typically. Corrugated water tanks. Let me see. We also have the giant plastic containers with the metal cages. Typically you see those used more outdoors. And then even something like a pool, depending on if it's contaminated or what the condition is. Obviously, you're not going to get too much water from a frozen pool in the middle of winter. But if it's summertime and you have no water coming through your pipes, it may be your best option. And with that, with the water flowing, as soon as a grid down emergency starts, like let's say that the water does start to come out of your pipes a little slower, it starts to come out a little discolored with a funky smell, you need to remember that you're probably going to have to boil a majority of this water, because some of the pipes may have been compromised, or maybe there was some backflow into the pipes depending on how they're set up. But most importantly, remember, anything that you get out of the pipes may be contaminated, just like a boil water advisory that you get You really need to keep stuff like that in mind. Last thing you want to do is start off an emergency by giving yourself some sort of bacteria or contaminant. All right, the next part we're going to talk about is procurement of water. And with that, we're not talking about going to the grocery store and buying gallons of water, and we're also not talking about getting it out of the tap. This is the type of situation where you're not able to get it out of the tap and the grocery stores are closed. We're talking about being a little bit more creative in your ways of getting water. So one of the first ways I would suggest is, obviously if there's a local lake or river, stream, typically flowing water, if you're able to find a source like that and it's uncompromised, go with that. If you have a way of boiling, filtering the water, go ahead, use that source. Obviously, if it's in an area, I live in Pennsylvania and we have a pretty decently sized river nearby, but I would not risk my life drinking that water because most of the drainage from the local cities goes right into that river. So I would not be drinking that water. However, there are natural springs up in the mountains that I would definitely drink. I might even drink straight from the tap because a lot of that water is pretty pure. Again, I'm not going to risk it in this kind of scenario where I can boil it, but you have that option, especially if you don't have the resources. But also there's things like silkcock keys. It's a four-sided key that you can go to a lot of commercial or industrial buildings. Use it to open up the side of, they have little taps on the side. A lot of that water is going to be stagnant and been in there for a while, so you're going to definitely want to boil it, but it's an option. A lot of pipes will have some lingering water left. Again, you must boil and make sure that that water is pure before drinking it. It is not your normal rainwater or natural spring water. You need to be very careful in procuring that type of water. Also, just in case you weren't aware, you can't just go to the ocean and start drinking water. The salt water will actually dehydrate you. I'm very surprised how few people know this fact, but if you do want to get water from the ocean, it is possible. There's a process called distillation where you actually use evaporation or basically you're having the water molecules hit a surface, they condense, and you use that condensation to pull into another area, and then basically there's no salt in that water. That's the process that you would use. Again, this is not the video to get into all of that, but it is possible to get drinkable water from salt water. Rain and snow are also another option. If you're able to collect them, great, go ahead, do it. Especially with rainwater, you're probably going to be able to set up a tarp. With snow, you're going to be able to scoop it right off the ground, obviously not the bottom layer, but with rainwater, make sure that it is a little bit more pure, doesn't have contaminants. And as far as snow, don't just put it in your mouth, let it melt and eat it. You really need to gather a whole bunch, put it, try to compact it, boil it down, and then continue to boil it. And you might fill up a container, and when you boil it, you may have a third of what you started with. Drink that once it cools down and repeat the process a bunch of times. All right, the last section we're going to cover here is purifying. So the best system truly is to filter the water, followed by boiling it and or using some sort of chemical to neutralize any living organisms. Filtering will get a majority of the chunks out, so you can use something like a bandana, a shamag, or even natural materials. You can set up a bunch of different layers. You can start with rocks, twigs, go to sand, charcoal, stuff like that. That'll get a majority of the chunks out. You can even refilter the water if it still doesn't look clear enough for you. And then from there, what you need to do is either boil it for about 1 to 10 minutes. 1 minute's all you got, it's better than 0. 10 minutes is preferred. And then from there, you can also, if it still doesn't seem like it's safe, or maybe say you only got it to 1 minute of a rolling boil, you can also add stuff. There's like pull shock. You can use bleach for storage. You can also use the shock for long-term storage. It's actually preferred if you're able to. But there's stuff like the Life Straw and the Sawyer filters. Those are great for filtering out a majority of the bacteria. They won't filter out viruses, but a majority of the stuff that's going to make you sick, that will filter out. I wouldn't suggest just sticking the straw in the water still and drinking, but again, that is your only option. It's better than dehydration. And if you're going to go that 3 days without water, you might as well try to drink using one of those Life Straws or something like that, rather than dying of dehydration. Alright, like I said before, this video is not to get into any specifics on water purification or storage or anything like that. It's just to address the rule that you need to get water within the first 3 days of an emergency. So if there's anything you would like to see me cover in the future or get more in depth on, please leave a comment and let me know. Like, share, subscribe the video. Again, this is a newer channel. I'm really trying to get out there. So anything that you could do, I would appreciate. All right, thank you very much. Stay safe, stay prepared, and stay alive.